Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and we are joined by Lior Gantz of wealthresearchgroup.com, and we've got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, it has been an absolute bloodbath out there, and obviously we're gonna get into all these issues in depth right away. I do want to do a quick breakdown. As of reporting this right now, the Dow had gone down more than 2,000 points in one day. Oil is falling at an insane speed and at record numbers. We haven't seen this since 1991 after the failed OPEC deal. We're going to go into all of this right away. First, Lior, I want to hear about the oil, the crash of the oil market right now. Honestly, I haven't seen anything like this in recent years. Some experts are calling for $20 oil in 2020. What do you think is causing all of this? I want to hear your thoughts on this.
So what you're seeing with the oil markets is a trifecta. Three things that are absolutely crashing down the price of oil. One, you're seeing Saudi Arabia trying to break the markets with the fact that they're not cutting supplies. So they're going to keep producing. And basically, their idea is to somehow break all of these producers, explorers, and developers that are highly leveraged. Everything that's working for them is only working for them because of low interest rates, where they can borrow and borrow and borrow. And basically, they're zombie operators that are not defaulting because they have access to cheap money, cheap debt all the time. They want to absolutely break them. Then on a political front, they want to break all of the other producers and make them punish them for what they've done to the Persian Gulf in the past few years. And obviously, this is a big deal because this is also a new front with Russia. So that's one thing. So a huge glut of supply. Then you have the zero demand. You've seen what happened with car sales in China. They've plummeted by more than 80%. That's 80%. That means that you're selling 2 cars for every 10 that you used to sell. That is an absolute carnage. Obviously, air traffic, you know what's going on with airlines and the fact that they're just canceling everything. People just don't want to leave home base. And that's obviously impacting demand for oil.
Well, it's actually it's like a wasteland. You go to any airport right now, it's unbelievable. I'm seeing nonstop flights that are $2,200 to $2,500 cheaper than usual. Baggage fees are cut down dramatically. Hotels in New York City are at an all-time low from what I've seen.
Yeah, no, this is massive. Now, this entire look, if you go to wealthresearchgroup.com/virus, I wrote an entire piece about the facts versus what they're telling us versus how they're managing it. So there's 3 things. There's the facts. There's all of these other out of this world, outlandish, disproportionate information from every which way. And then there's how it's being managed by authorities. And what's the agenda to manage it in this way? Because obviously, this is going to impact elections in 2020. This is going to impact elections big time. You cannot do rallies when things are like this, and rallies are where Trump is at his best. How can you lick envelopes and put them into ballots?
Well, actually, people have been told not to lick envelopes. There's been a headline news recently:
Exactly.
Do not lick your envelopes.
Yeah, look, this is madness. From now, I'm not saying this is madness in terms of this is disproportionate to what the coronavirus is. We can talk about. Look, there's 2 things with the coronavirus. First, the lethality of it is still it's still out there. First they said it's 2%. Now in Italy, where obviously the population is older, in general, as a general rule, they have an older population. Their mortality rates is jumping to 6%. So is this the seasonal flu, or is this much bigger? Then you have the fact that it spreads so quickly. it just spreads.
And many are saying that it could stick to surfaces for as much as 6 weeks, which is very strange compared to most colds. Obviously, there's the coronavirus has been around for a long time. The novel coronavirus is a crazy mutation. Obviously, there is a mixture of fear-mongering mixed in with reality, but there's also seems to be a cover-up coming out of places like China. China has obviously been covering things up, claiming that people have gotten better when they haven't gotten better, and it's just getting worse from that perspective. It almost seems like a bioweapon. A lot of countries around the world are actually speaking out and saying that it might be. But nonetheless, regardless of how strong the coronavirus itself is, it's having a profound effect on the market, a profound effect on just day-to-day life. Stores are selling out. I've never seen anything like this, regardless of the fear. It is like nothing I've ever seen.
No, it's look. Here's what the markets is really fearing. So there's a couple of things that's very fearing, and again, this is as close to the end game as we've been. I've been investing in the stock market since I was 16. I'm 35. For the past 19 years, I went through. I literally started investing 3 months after the dot-com bubble bursts. So I've seen that firsthand. I actually was, as I said, I was like 13, 14, 15 when that thing accelerated. I was a babysitter for a high-tech genius who sold his company for $4.5 billion. Now, not a babysitter for him, for his kid, but I saw firsthand the wealth. And then, I saw it go down by, I saw his take go down by 50%. Still a massive take, but nonetheless, I saw the madness, and then 2008, I was in the heart of it. Josh, I don't know if I told you this, but I took a 4-day rafting trip in Colorado without cell reception in the Lehman weekend. So I'm coming out of that I'm getting back to cell service. It was carnage, and actually, it helped me a lot to deal with it because I was like, okay, what has happened in 4 days that has justified these swings and helped me operate better. And the lion's share of my wealth I made after 2008. And we saw, obviously, the mini bear market in December 2018. What the markets are fearing is that this is not a 2008 and not a December 2018. In other words, they're fearing that there's a disconnect between what the government is treating this as and what central banks are treating this as. So central banks have done an emergency cut, 50 basis points, boom. Whereas, like 2 hours before this show, if you look at Trump's Twitter feed, he's like, look, 20,000 people have died from the seasonal flu, 22 people have died from coronavirus. Why are we even comparing the two? So there's a central bank on one hand saying this is insane. There's the government on the other hand saying, chill, relax, let's look at this, let's not panic. And the markets, there's a famous saying, and I agree with it a lot. The markets stop panicking when the president starts panicking. In other words, when he goes and says, look, get everyone together, let's go drastic here. Let's insure all the companies that if they lay off people, we're going to extend unemployment. Let's insure these. Let's do broad market action. Now, Trump, for him, it's a mental thing. Am I going to be a Republican president that's going to succumb to these pressures, or am I going to let market forces work and see where this leads? Maybe this leads to a 50% drop. Maybe this leads to a 20%. Let's see what the markets do. Now, I remind you that President Bush had Geithner, Bernanke, and Paulson come to his office and lay out a scenario that's everything's going to crater. General Motors is not going to pay 15,000 employees. They created this whole scenario where he really feared, and he said, look, I don't want to bail out Wall Street, but I'm afraid for Main Street. And the question is, where does Trump come into this program? Because what the markets want is give us everything. Give us all assurances. Give us everything. Then we'll stop panicking, and we'll know that we can operate. If I may, just one more thing. So that's one thing that the markets really want. The second thing is they want to know the severity of the coronavirus. Is it a 6% mortality rate? Is it 2% mortality rate? What is it? What are we looking at here? because we know the vaccine, if it's a world record, it's going to come in between 12 to 18 months from now. There is no vaccine for the meanwhile, and then the markets also want to know, as well as every person wants to know, is this going to be a seasonal coronavirus? Is this staying with us, or is this just going to disappear and never come back? So that's the main fear with the corona, with the markets and where the central banks is. And then this is not like 2008. This is not a financial crisis. This is not the banks levered up. This is, Josh, look, this is real life economics. So, Disney's had to close all their, stuff in Asia. The casinos are closed. The gatherings, sporting events. This is the real economy that is having this seizure.
Right,
So,
and there's a lot of evidence that there could be border closures in an insane amount of countries around the world right away. Mass quarantines. We're seeing a quarter of the Italian population in quarantine right now. It's insane. And, I've been in contact with some people in Italy that say, it's mostly normal. The stores have sold out of everything. It's mostly normal, though, but we're just not allowed to leave this area or whatever it might be. I do want to add that it's a strange scenario because it's not just, the coronavirus is a catalyst, not the cause. Obviously, this has been a ticking time bomb for a while. We've all been warning about it for years, about what could happen at the top and when there's too much speculation and all that. But when you have something like the coronavirus factor in, it acts as a catalyst and knocks down these dominoes. And it's a strange thing to combine together because you have the potential for bailouts. All these airlines are just getting ripped to shreds right now, and they're lowering their prices insanely. We could see mass layoffs, mass unemployment come out of this. But at the same time, when it comes to bailing it out, when you have the oil price dropping at the same time, when you have the stock market falling like a rock, when you have the Fed needing to print a bunch of money to try and flood into the stock market and prop up this system, how much can they possibly get into, these airlines without deficit spending? Without just causing a huge amount of inflation. I'm just concerned about how they could possibly put a cap on this, or if they should just stand back and let it all fall and let us rebuild from the ashes.
The bigger question is, what's the cost of it? So, in other words, should we, what the president is debating is, should we close schools? Should we quarantine people? Or should the average person begin to think for his own? Should this be from the top down, like in China, where they just said, okay, get 400 million people. That's the entire country in the United States, plus 70 million people. This is huge. Get 400 million people in quarantine, and we'll tell you exactly what to do. We'll sanitize all the streets. This is something of epic proportions. Or should we let private companies begin to issue, kits and vaccines, and let the markets and just the economy figure this out? It's a big question, and I don't think at this point there's even a possibility that they'll allow the free market. The pressure on President Trump in an election year to operate and to come out as a hero from this, and to show himself those presidential pictures, like on the helicopter where Bush is looking at the Katrina wreckage. This is or standing on the 9/11 burned ashes. This is what the president would want to. This is what his advisors keep telling him. You need to be. Now, what he's done is he's appointed Pence, right? The vice president as the spearhead of this. So he'll have a pat. He has got the sacrificial lamb. If this is not operating right, he'll say, Pence, move out of the way. Let the real man handle this, and let me pull this country out of its misery. So that's what he's done until now.
We see Pence, we see Mnuchin, we see Kudlow. Last time I checked, none of them were doctors, but I guess that's the task force.
Yeah. No, well, look, they're very competent people. Obviously, this stuff is not get. These are decision makers. They get fed information from experts that the epidermologists or however you say that name. They get fed incredible information. But look, there's a big difference between being a person with data and being a person that has a a mental and intellectual ability to go through like a chessboard, go through like 150 different scenarios, what their secondary and third and fourth and fifth level ramifications are. What does this mean for everything? How it looks, how it feels, and make a decision. These are very, very stressful times to be a leader. And I think what the markets are doing is this. There are so many, Josh, so many retail investors out there who came into the markets after Trump was elected. Trump brought the middle class back into confidence. He brought, since he is in office, gold sales and silver sales have plummeted. People have restored confidence in the American way and the free enterprise system. Many more people have come back, and they've not been through 2008. They don't know what markets are when they behave like this. So when they tell you, hey, I've read all the books, I've read the Buffett books, I'm a buy and hold ETF guy. He's a buy and hold ETF guy for the good times. So when things are roaring, everything's fine. The first minute he feels pain, he's out of the, he's rushing for the exit. So there's a lot of retail crowd that is just exiting the markets at liquidation price. They don't know what the fair price of the S&P 500 is. They don't know the first thing about markets. They know that, look, to be richer in general, you buy the index, you buy the S&P 500, and you wait for 30 years. And so they're out. Now, here's where the Fed is to blame. The institutional money is saying, okay, let me clear all of these retail people. I'm not going to bid until they puke everything that they've got. And then I'll come in, I'll borrow at zero rate. At a zero rate, I'll borrow money for free, leveraged up to the bone when the government and the central banks and everyone is already in this. And I'll buy stuff for 30 and 40% off. And that's what's happening. The institutions, the ones that have enjoyed all of this wealth effect up until now, are now saying, look, I've made so much money. I've took profits because obviously share buybacks have been the biggest buyers. I've took profits over all of these years. The retail guys are buying Tesla and all this other inflated stuff. Let them puke everything out, and then we'll come in again. And that's it. That's the wealth transfer. So they are absolutely loving the chaos. They want the chaos to last for 3 or 4 more days. If they, the New York Stock Exchange halted today for the first 15 minutes. This is out of this world stuff. This is stuff that happens, in the 1930s. This happened. This is big stuff. Now, here's the duality of it, right? You sit there, Josh, in your home, your daily life. You go through them in the last 2-3 weeks. Nothing serious has been affected. You've had the same breakfast, same lunch, same dinner. It's happening, but it's not happening to you. And you're like, well, okay, my job hasn't been affected. My income still hasn't been affected. Where is this? Why is this so big? And because all of these supply chain disruptions there's going to be shortages of this and that because it comes from China, and you're still not seeing it. So it's a dual fight in your mind. Is this hyped or is this real? What should I do, etc. So
it's a confusion that a lot of people are dealing with. I mean, a lot of stores in Las Vegas here in Nevada have sold out of toilet paper. There's a lot of empty shelves, a lot of panic buying, especially at Costco. Yet there's other stores that are totally fine. You go there and the shelves are stocked, but then you go over to Costco or something and it's like empty. The shelves are empty. It's crazy. It's not something that a lot of us experience in our life. I mean, we see crashes, but not like this. And honestly, people just forget the last crash far too easily, and they can't imagine it happening again. And we've all been talking about this for years. We're getting vindicated, unfortunately. Honestly, there's a lot of people that were, saying Chicken Little for the last year or so, when a lot of us were talking about, there's risk here. There's a lot of risk here. One thing I think I'm more concerned about even than the coronavirus is how the government operates around this, what the quarantines are going to look like, what the effects on civil liberties, individual liberties are going to be. As always, always. But I do want to get into something that we've talked about in depth before, Lior, which is, the issue of independence versus dependence. This is a great wake-up call regarding the supply chain, regarding how people deal with a disaster like this. And by disaster, I mean, if the stores end up running out of food, I mean, that can happen. What do people do? What do millennials do that, unfortunately, to such a great degree, are not ready to be independent in a situation like this, aren't prepping, aren't prepared? What do you think?
So, we live in a world where the global economy is operating always like a Ferrari car at sixth gear with all the torque on it. So it's so efficient, right? Everything is so efficient. You order stuff. There's components from all around the world coming together to one factory. You get delivered to another. It's amazing, but it's delicate, and that is basically what the coronavirus is exposing, for real. Now everyone knows it, but a Ferrari doesn't break down every couple of minutes, right? It's a phenomenal car. It's a beast. It's a masterpiece. But when it does, you're shaken up. So I think we've seen this in history. I mean, in the 20th century, we've had many life-changing traumas that you and I haven't experienced personally, but we heard about. I heard about them first account from my grandfather, for example, was in a concentration camp in the Second World War. I've heard many stories, right? So and I was 6 when the Gulf War was here in the Middle East, and I was in every house has a bunker here, and you had to have your mask on. It was every day, sirens everywhere, and you go in to your shelter. So look, all of these experiences, they're learning experience, and then they're also traumatic experiences. In the U.S., where it's a lot of metro areas, there are problems, sure, where most of the food is sourced in, and nobody knows the first thing about growing it or stuff like that. In a developed economy like the U.S., about 2% of the people are farmers or have any agricultural experience. And this is most of the Western world. So if you go to Europe, etc., about 2% of the people are responsible for our food. It's insane to think about, but yeah, it's true, because in third world countries or second world countries, most of the agriculture is for self-consumption. So you grow it for yourself, right? And you have countries with half of the people being farmers, or 30%, 20%. But in the Western world, it's mostly, it's so efficient that it runs on machinery and everything else. Now that exposes that situation. Obviously, the government has their own reserve supplies and stuff like that, but we don't want to reach those points. We don't want to see how prepared they are. This is the real key here. This is the real key question. Is this a once-in-a-century event? Is this a real pandemic? Will, like the WHO says, the World Health Organization, by the summer, this will hit 30% of the world's population in terms of like carrying the virus. What's going to happen in the summer when temperatures rise, and obviously a virus, it doesn't want to kill the host. It wants to. It can't survive in higher temperatures, is what I'm saying. What will all of this happen? And yes, that comes into dependence versus independence. How much do we want the government in our lives? Most people, Josh, I can tell you, want the government in their lives. They want these authorities to make dictatorial type decisions, because what they fear is that if they don't, then this guy that caught the disease is going to walk around free and shake hands with people, other people. So in Russia, for example, if you are leaving your self-mandated quarantine that the government has said you have to be in quarantine in your house, you get a 5-year jail sentence. So they're going to that route. It just depends on 3 things. One, how the authorities handle it. Two, how much discipline is exhibited by the population. And three, the weather and everything else that has to do with your region.
Right.
In other words, how many airports is there in a country? If there's one or two airports in those smaller countries, you can literally, close the airport and then contain it within the country. A country like the United States that has people coming in from Phoenix and Denver and Houston and Seattle, it's much harder. So,
and obviously Chinese tourism is massive. I mean, starting off this whole thing, I mean, it was a perfect place for it to start, because if you go literally anywhere in the world, and this is just a fact. I mean, if I've been in the middle of the Sahara Desert and there's a busload of Chinese tourists, I mean, they're everywhere you go. I mean, you're gonna see that. And it was
100 million people a year. 100 million people a year go and travel the world from China on their New Year's, which is late January, early February.
Yeah, and I have to add, because I'm in Las Vegas, one of the most toured cities in the world, and around the Chinese New Year, when this was all really starting to pick up steam, I go to the Strip in Las Vegas, and at the Bellagio, they have one of the world's biggest Chinese New Year events, and tens of thousands of Chinese nationals were there. And I was thinking at the time, is this kind of ill-advised or what? But I do want to, when it comes to the government's response, I think the question is, will they take that power and run with it? And the answer is absolutely yes, they will. But it just depends on how far they will take that. And obviously, we've had a lot of confusion regarding this. We have one epidemiologist, a professor at Harvard University, that says this will eventually affect 70% of the world will get coronavirus. And then another epidemiologist, a professor at Harvard University, said the exact opposite. Oh, it's overblown. It's not a big deal. So again, you just even have confusion among the experts. And I mean, as far as saving your money, our contributor here at WAM, Tim Pachode, who's a certified financial planner, was good enough to put his clients' money into put options in January and made like 300% on their money. Meanwhile, everything's crashing. And you look at cryptocurrency, for example, and obviously cryptocurrency has been dramatically affected by this. Gold has had an interesting effect in itself, but obviously a lot of people are waiting for the Fed to start printing money, and if the Fed starts printing money, a lot of people hope that that's going to go into things like cryptocurrency, prop up the crypto market. I don't know. What do you think about how this is going to affect these so-called safe haven markets?
Yeah, I'll start with gold and silver. So with gold, the important point to remember is that you don't own gold in order to capitalize on catastrophes. No. You own gold in order to safeguard your savings from catastrophes. Now, physical gold, that is. Now, if you want to speculate that there's going to be a rush to safe havens, then you can trade the paper ETFs, because you can go in and out instead of just buying gold and physical gold. It's more of a nuisance, a hassle, right? So with my physical gold, I won't sell it when the corona hype is over, for example, when the corona crisis is over, because I think, man, the worst is behind us, etc. I own gold, physical gold, because I want to protect a part of my savings forever, for good, and I keep buying more of it whenever I have more savings. Now, with the ETFs, it's different. If you think that there's going to be a reflation and gold is going to 2,000, etc., then you can use options, you can use the ETFs, you can use some of the large miners, especially with oil being so cheap. It's very profitable to mine. Mining has two big expenditures: oil and labor, and oil is absolutely cratering right now. So these miners are making a fortune. These big miners. And I think they're making much more than the S&P 500 companies are going to see their guidance revised down. So you may see a big move up in with the miners. And if you go to wealthresearchgroup.com/gold playbook, that's from A to Z, everything about gold investing. Now, silver is mostly an industrial metal. That's why it's not joining gold in this rally. In fact, the gold-silver ratio, for the first time in history, Josh, as we're doing this interview, it's hit 100 to 1.
Wow.
That's 100 to 1.
Absolutely.
People said it's, yeah. So that's one thing. Now, with crypto and with gold, remember this, that if your stock portfolio is going down by 20, 30%, because you don't just own the index, you may own individual stocks that went down much more than the actual indices, and you have the potential of margin calls, and you want to cash up, then it may be that you say, hey, I love this company. I don't want to sell it 30% off because I think it's worth more. I'll keep it. What I'll do is I'll sell gold. I've just bought gold at 1,500 and reached 1,600, etc. I made a little profit. Let me take that and get it to cash. So that's why you see gold rallying, but then you also see, look, you see sell things during this crisis. It's not going straight up. So that's one thing to remember. It's technical stuff that's happening. For example, hedge funds and funds in general, pension funds, they are thinking about withdrawals. So they're selling stuff that could be absolutely great just because they fear that 100 people tomorrow will call in their funds and they need to be liquid for it. So there's a lot of selling that's happening, that's forced selling. That's not, if the clients were patient, for example, then the fund manager would not be making this move. It's not a financial move, it's a business move. He needs to be cashed up to answer clients' withdrawals requests. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and that's why I'm saying with gold, if you own the physical, you only need to think about how much physical do you own compared to your lifestyle. In other words, what I do is I own about 24 months worth of my living expenses in physical gold. If there's a 2-year depression, the 2020 to 2022 Great Depression 2.0, I've got 2 years worth of my life expenses at not at crisis time, but at leisure time, with a family unit. So with my wife and daughter, I got that stored in physical gold.
Right.
Now that could rise in value, obviously, in crisis time when things go down in their purchasing power, and that could help even more. So that's what I have. Now, if I want to speculate in and out of these markets with gold and silver, then I have other vehicles that I do it with. And like you said, some of these more extreme vehicles are the options markets, and there are certain miners, etc. And we talk about that on wealthresearchgroup.com, the free financial newsletter. That's where I cover some of my personal things that I'm doing, etc. So that's where I'm at with that. With Bitcoin, I think what's important to remember is that it's unproven as gold is. In other words, it doesn't have the thousands of years track record. So you may see it not serving as digital gold at these times. You may see people just go to gold. Why go with unproven gold? Just go to gold. But Bitcoin has so many other revolutionary features that have nothing to do with being a safe haven and have a lot to do with its technology, with the halving. When Warren Buffett says, look, let me create my own blockchain, I'll say that there's only 21 units of it, 21 million units, and I'll make it scarce and sell it to the public. He's not touching on some real points. In other words, all these people that are downplaying what Bitcoin is, what the blockchain is, they just don't understand it. That's the bottom line.
Well, yeah, we see that, for example, in times where earlier this year in January, there was a lot of fear regarding potential war with Iran, and we saw a ton of people flood to crypto in those times. It seems to have more of an effect as a safe haven when it comes to fear of war rather than financial concerns and constraints. But obviously, there's many reasons why people look at cryptocurrencies for privacy reasons, and in Orwellian times, a lot of people are concerned about their privacy, and they'll go to privacy coins like Monero. And obviously, Bitcoin's easier to trade internationally than gold, but obviously, there's also gold-backed cryptocurrencies out there as well. Nonetheless, as we are running out of time, it's just been an absolutely crazy few weeks. I think we will be talking about this time 50 years from now without without a doubt. I think this is already completely historic. And every day I wake up and I laugh, not because I think it's funny, but I think, wow, we are living in such an insanely crazy time. And it's not to fearmonger. It's about telling people what the realities are and hopefully giving people an idea of the solutions that they can look towards. And you do a lot of that over at Wealth Research Group. You have a lot of great newsletters, a lot of great reports over there that I urge everyone to check out. As we close this off, can you tell everyone where to go and where to support the incredible work that you do over there?
If you take nothing else from today, go and check out the report on wealthresearchgroup.com/virus, because it goes through everything from how to protect your children as to why the coronavirus is so disruptive. Can it have the potential to postpone the 2020 elections? Because that's a real possibility. Whether or not it's a bioweapon, we talk about everything there, and we compiled it from about 425 different sources and contexts that we have around the world. And obviously, the newsletter is my bread and butter. If you go to the main site, you can subscribe on the right there on the homepage. It goes out 3 times a week, and right now we're just focusing on everything that's happening with the coronavirus, with the economy, with the stock market, and the idea is basically to make sure that you have no fluff, and in 5 minutes of reading or 10 minutes of reading, you're compressing about 40 or 50 different data points that take 6 to 7 hours to compile every day. That's basically the value of it.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate your insight, Lior, as always. Looking forward to getting you back on here soon, because I can only imagine 1 week from now, 2 weeks from now, a month from now, how much things will change. I mean, we're in a time where I do these videos, and by the time they're up, something else insane happens, and I can't even keep up with it unless I'm live on YouTube or something. Obviously, everyone can find the links below pinned to the top of the comments as well as the description. Make sure to hit that like button, and as always, we'll see you next time. Thank you very much, Lior.
Thank you, sir.
Like what you see here, don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar. We really can't do it without you. We've been so insanely shadow banned, about 90% at this point, and 95% demonetized. As Susan Wojcicki, the CEO of YouTube, comes in and says that she is shutting down quote-unquote controversial content and cutting out the views on this controversial content by 70%. She's been bragging about it. We need your help more than ever in this battle for truth in information. You guys are what keeps us alive, so we really appreciate just even $1 a month makes a huge difference. If everyone could give just $1 a month, we wouldn't even have to worry about competing against the mainstream propaganda networks. You can also donate to our Bitcoin address on the screen for you to scan if you please, as well as in the comments and description. Liking and sharing makes a big difference as well, and finding us on alternative social media platforms like float.app, that's flote.app, makes a huge difference. We're at Josh Sigurdson as well as at Wham. Float is replacing Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon all in one with encrypted private messaging, and of course monetization on videos for creators, live streams with super chats in crypto, and most of all, no algorithm, because at the end of the day, it's all about reach, guys. This is all about actually reaching people with the message and waking up the public. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, Minds, BitChute, all sorts of different platforms. Try to follow us on as many things as possible, because very soon this channel will very likely just be completely deleted from YouTube, and you'll never see us again, and you'll be stuck with only the mainstream networks. Also, come on out and see us at Anarcho Vegas 2020 in Las Vegas, Nevada in July, where such speakers such as G. Edward Griffin and many others will be speaking. You could use promo code WHAM on your VIP tickets and save 10%, as well as buy extremely cheap tickets for just $20.20. You won't find a cheaper conference than this with such amazing names. Check anarchovegas.com for more information on that. We hope to see you out there. And anyway, I really appreciate all of you guys joining us. You make it possible for us to survive in this volatile, propagandized climate Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.